Now, as soon as you saw this, James, it's typical sort of thinking out loud Donald Trump, very unwise, sort of unclear stuff. But as soon as you saw it, you knew the ferals in the media were going to say that he's telling people to mainline Dettol or whatever, and sure enough, off they went.
I was standing socially distanced Saturday morning at a restaurant near my house that does a farmer's market. I was waiting to pick up some stuff from them, keeping them in business. And two socially distant pairs away, I heard somebody talking about, oh, and Donald Trump, we should all drink Dettol. Now, of course, the whole thing is just, it went completely off. They ignored the fact that right before he said those things, he was talking with the head of science and technology at the Department of Homeland Security about the way in the labs they've done research to see what kills the virus and things like, disinfectants and also UV light also kill it, which of course also brings up the whole beach debate that we're having here. But that's another story we can talk about a little bit later. I got some thoughts about that, believe me. But then of course they took this one little bit and immediately the Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, Bloomberg, everybody ran with this story that, oh my God, Donald Trump said everybody should inject themselves with Lysol or Glen 20 or, eat dish chips or something like this. And then, don't do this, don't follow what he said, he's got blood on his hands. And so it was just this complete overreaction, this hysteria. The problem is, though, these sorts of hysterias wind up taking on a narrative of their own. So, it's a bit sort of like how, the Tet Offensive wasn't actually a military victory for the North Vietnamese, and yet it became this sort of symbol of American defeat. And media narratives are the same way. Once one of them takes off, he's got a lot of trouble. I think he's going to pare back these press conferences now, and not a moment too soon, Chris.
Well, yeah, he shouldn't be sort of riffing like that, but in the end, it's the media who spreads the more misinformation than Trump does, because they arc it up so much. Have a look at, here's the way it was represented on Channel 10's The Project.
You've got to be careful, though, right? The people that vote for a politician, usually it means they trust them to some degree, and these things actually will kill you. I feel like if he's going to spout theories like this, he has to test them on himself first.
There we go. Nick Cater, I thought facing this global crisis and national crisis, we would see an improved performance from the media. I thought they'd sort of get serious about relaying accurate information, but we've seen no improvement, really, have we?
Yeah. So did I, Chris. That's my. You took the words out of my mouth. The other thing I thought we'd see the end of is this sort of polarised, red hat, blue hat sort of politics and coverage of the politics, and yet no. I mean, Donald Trump has become the sort of magnet for all their disturbance about this problem. And the trouble is with this, this one-eyed obsession with following Donald Trump's Twitter account and whatever, is that you miss other stories. I mean, you miss the fact that, for instance, the outbreak in New York, the terrible outbreak in New York, occurred in a Democrat state with a Democrat president, or even more seriously, in my view,
Democrat governor.
Is what China's doing.
Yeah, but no, you're spot on. I mean, people are sort of cheering on the virus at times because they think it'll be bad for Donald Trump. It is a bit sick. In fact, Gemma, I'll show you this tweet first. This comes from The Chaser. I think these are the same guys who did all the stuff with the ABC and the like. They say, please join us this Friday in celebrating the first annual Not America Day, in which we come together to celebrate the fact that while things might not be perfect, at least we're not America. It's so pathetic, isn't it, Gemma? They don't mention Iran or Italy or China. It's a chance to embrace their green left anti-Americanism.
Well, it's pretty much straight from the Chaser's playbook. And you're quite right. I mean, imagine if they have said, well, not Italy Day. I mean, you're allowed to make fun of deaths in America, apparently, but not allowed to make fun of significantly more or the same amount of deaths in Italy. I do despair a little bit as well. I think that the more, in the same way that the electorate disengages with the political debate because they just get fed up with it, I believe that is a big part of why everyday Australians disengage with media. And we know more people are watching right now in this period of sort of intense activity. But more generally, I don't know that necessarily translates to a greater degree of trust. When we don't want to see myself as a consumer of news, I'm not particularly interested in partisan and polarising coverage. I want the facts and I want them unemotionally delivered, and I certainly don't don't count the Chaser or the Project as news for the record, but it's disappointing that it hasn't seen a lift commensurate with the seriousness of the situation.